Stand by, please. Three, two.
Welcome to the Art of Conscious Living. Today my guest is Dempsey Harshaw. He's the author of a book, Free to Fly, and next month, the soon-to-be-released book, My Love is Alive. And I'm very, very honored and pleased to speak with Dempsey today here in the studio. Thank you for taking the time out from your very, very busy schedule to speak about your life, your work, and to share your beautiful spirit with me, Dempsey.
It's my pleasure, my wonderful joy to do so. Thank you.
So how are you at this moment in time?
Fantastically enamored with the whole game of life, the embrace of the experience of who I am as and in that life, and the discovery in every moment of the value, the comfort, the power, and the life that simply is.
So there seems to be sounds like a lot of acceptance in there coming from you, a lot of gratitude.
There is probably there's appreciation. There's appreciation, and it's appreciation. I think those things I just mentioned with the comfort, the value, the power, the life. It's that appreciation of those iconic words that are appreciated because they are the essence of who I am. They may show up in metaphoric descriptions or metaphoric beliefs in my world, but I'm not clinging to them as holding that comfort, that value, that power, or that life. I'm knowing that I can only feel my own presence and my own essence. And that's the beauty of walking through life, is that it's almost like everything is a reflective mirror of who you really are.
I really enjoyed reading your first book, Free to Fly. Mm-hmm. It was a very, very brief book, 100 pages plus, mm-hmm. but it was so powerful, it's so profound. It really was, every word, every paragraph was, and every chapter was always leading the reader back to the ownership of oneself, not seeking it outside. You basically took all of the scriptures and the wisdom writings and the teachings, and you condensed it into a very short, powerful writing. And I thank you for writing this book.
Thank you.
It really, really put the onus, as I was reading it, on myself to say, yes, I am the power. I am that expression. I am the sum total of all. And let go to that and release that and just be with that. And it did it in such a beautiful, practical way of writing and very simple. Mm-hmm. I really, really appreciated that. There was nothing complicated about it. I've read many other books and they talk about the be here or be here now or the moment is now or let go and be.
Yes.
But they make it they don't really say how to do that. But in your book, powerfully, simply, it was there for the reader.
And if I could sort of reflect on what you just said.
Yes.
Because there's a lot of teachings, books, people, things out there that you can read, you can glean from, and they have those iconic truths of letting go. They have an iconic truth of accepting. They have an iconic truth of being. And those are all truths. But what I write about is what I live about, and that is stepping into the reality that needs no support, that needs no reinforcement or crutch or extra truth to make it so. It's the end result. It's the end game that every single one of these iconic truths are pointing to. And so what I write about is, let's start from there, because what happens when you start in these little truths, which are wonderful, they're wonderful, they're descriptive, they give you a feeling of freedom, a feeling of comfort, a feeling of value, a freedom of life, of possibility. And those are all good. But what happens often is one will get stuck in those truths, and they'll call them the place where they wanted to get to. And what my writing says is, the place you want to get to is the place you are infinitely as you are as your infinite being. That's where you want to get to, because that's where you really are. You're there already, and it's a matter of simply taking that infinite attention of awareness that you are and giving that the recognition. And it's powerful, because you can be hiding yourself in any vibratory storyline in this world. And that's wonderful, because it takes infinite power to do so. You think sometimes when you're hid and you're making a mistake, or that something's going wrong, that you didn't want to go a certain way, you doubt yourself and you say, what can I do to change this? What I say is, recognize the power it took to get you there. Because that exact same power that you're standing in to be there is the exact same power that you embrace as who you are. It's also your discovery. It's never further away than what you think is the disaster. It's right there. There's no work, there's no aligning, there's just stopping and feeling the experience of that pure power and saying, that's mine.
And the ownership of that, from the past, the present, to the future, it all merges, it all comes together, and it's effortless at that moment in time.
Exactly, and it's taken me a long time in my journey of trying a lot of different gimmicks and a lot of different truths and a lot of different things to finally say, wait, I am that I am. And if that's true, and I'm absolutely whole and complete, then what am I doing? What am I trying to align with? What am I trying to fix? If there's nothing else than the essence of who I am, if that's the reality, not just in me, but as all, what am I really trying to do? It's almost asking the question, if I will, and I'll go off on a little tangent here. It's almost asking, what happens is someone will say the Father God, or Jesus, the Son, or the Kingdom of Heaven. And those are all fine iconic truths. They're pointing to a feeling of reality. But it behooves you, if you truly are desiring all that you are. I say this with underline and bold, if I could do that. If you really desire all that you are, that you will ever be and infinitely be and that could ever be, then it behooves you to ask the question, who is the Father? Who is the Son? What does those words mean? What does that idea really mean? And if Jesus said the kingdom of God is within you, then it really behooves you to say, what is the kingdom of God? really, what is that? Instead of just saying, the kingdom of God is within me, la-di-da-di-da-di-da, I go down the pathway and I hope that that feeling that I had, that kingdom of God will take care of me, secure me, comfort me, guide me. You can do that. I'm not saying you can't do that. But what I write about is that when you really embrace through experience who you really are as the authority, which is the kingdom, the power that is the kingdom, that metaphor of the kingdom, because a kingdom is power and authority, and it's comfort and it's safety, and you will really embrace that as who you are and stand in that, you're doing much, much more than you can ever imagine, even if it seems a little shaky at first because you're used to calling descriptions of God more than they are.
So what I know about your writing is that this is not a religious thing we're talking about here.
No.
This is very much of spirit, and this is very much of the human experience of ownership, of taking the lines and literally working those lines and owning that which you just said. The kingdom of God, it's not a concept outside of us. It is a literally ownership of that in our DNA and our cells and our whole beingness is of that. We are a spark of that. So when we are within that energy at that moment of our truest, fullest potential, that everything is already done. Everything is effortless. Everything is beautiful. It's not something outside, like a religious thing where you need to have the middle guy and you need to seek it outside of you and look for it.
And that's just exactly what happens. I mean, it's so simplistic, and the core of this is staring you in the face at every moment. What I say is that I say that who you are as consciousness, I say it in two different ways. I say the only action and power of consciousness is that consciousness is the believer. Every time you think you're believing as a human being, that's consciousness. Because consciousness believes absolutely unconditionally as you, and is you, believing. So you don't have to go off on the tangent, well, I believed the wrong thing. No, you were consciousness believing. You had the freedom to believe. That's it. The other thing I say for consciousness is that I call consciousness the awareness. And the action and power of consciousness is attention. Those two concepts are the very same thing, but I say them in different terms to give a broader understanding for someone that might catch it better here rather than there. Consciousness knowing itself, its infinite self. You have to understand that infinite self is beyond measure and beyond words. Consciousness giving light of believing its infinite self and idea creates a shadow, naturally. That's where in Genesis it says, and so it is. Because as soon as consciousness gives attention to its essence of self and idea, the creation is, the shadow is, the reflection is. So the very core essence of every single description that you see in this vibratory world, everything in its core is a belief. A belief. A belief. It's not the reality. A belief is a reflective shadow of the essence of who you, I am, infinitely are. It's a reflective shadow. But the belief is so close to the being of who you are as the believer, you believe it's your essence. It's like rubbing right up against you. And you just can't let that belief go because it's your value. It's your life. It's your comfort. So that's why beliefs become such a comfort, because they're the vibratory reflection that's just rubbing right up against your infinite self. Reflecting from you like a shadow, still touching you. And Jesus said, just a little quick quote, is that he said, the one who loses his life will save it, and the one, or preserve it, and the one who tries to save his life will lose it. And nobody's ever given the true meaning to this, and I'm very bold with my writings, as you know, but the real bold and absolute truth with that is that every single millisecond, if you really look at it, every time you're calling yourself life, every time you're calling a value life, every time you're calling life a comfort, you're probably calling a belief that life. You're probably calling a belief or beliefs. There's a one big belief bubble, but I won't go into that right now, but you probably are calling a belief the life. And so when you lose all your beliefs, when you sell them out and say, take them, I won't hold on to one of them, not even the pretty ones. I won't hold that. That's called seeking first the kingdom of heaven. That's what that means, is you let go of absolutely every belief that says, I'm real, I'm the value, I'm the comfort, I'm the life, I'm the power. You let go of every single belief and say, I'm the life, I'm the comfort, my unseen infinite essence is all of that, and I'm not going to hold on to one single belief. And there's absolutely bliss, absolutely comfort, and absolutely well-being in doing so. And sometimes it takes a while to do it, and you'll find another belief that will pop and you go, oh, I'm holding on to that belief. And you let it go.
So quite simply said, you get out of your own way and allow the kingdom of heaven, the Christ-like energy that is within us, you express it, you are it. You're recognizing what is innately, naturally there. And in your book, Free to Fly, why did you choose that title, Free to Fly? What is it actually meaning and saying?
As you know, in Free to Fly, I have a lot of what I call letters of consciousness, or some people would call them spirit letters, in which I hear my infinite voice speak to me. And sometimes I'll hear it and I'll just write down what I hear. Well, I heard the topic, Free to Fly. And when I heard those words, I didn't know how the book would look, because the subtitle is, It Is Your Reality. But I knew right then that that was the title, and I didn't know how it was going to look. I didn't know whatever, but it brought in through me the feeling that I feel when I was writing this book.
So the feeling of the book is about your experience. I'd like to speak about your experience of what guided you and
Sure.
what brought you to, on a personal level, of writing this book, and who you are, Dempsey. What's happened in your life that has moved you to be so inspired to allow this information to come through you?
It's the process. It's the process that everybody. I won't. I use these general terms. Everybody, but it's the process in which life is always transformed from darkness. Life is always hidden and then discovered. Life is always in the shell of the egg and then birthed from the egg. So as you go through the experience of life and you discover that eggshell, those descriptions, those beliefs aren't the life for you, and you've really tried to make them the life. You've worked really hard. You've used them, you've meditated on them, you've done whatever you had to do to make yourself somehow come to a point of acceptance and knowing. And what happened for me is that I did a lot of that with religions or schooling and different aspects, but like I said, my own infinite voice has always been there, and I've never known it as my infinite voice. I just thought it was some pretty cool things coming that I heard. But when I started realizing that that was more than just some kind of cool thought, that it was me, the infinite me, speaking to me. It's like when you listen to your heart, that doesn't mean you're separate from your heart. It means you're listening to yourself. So I'm listening to my infinite voice. When I say I'm listening to spirit, I'm listening to my heart. I'm not listening to a thing that's separate from me. I'm listening to who I really am. And so those writings came through, and they would come through, and I was sort of shy about it at first because they would be like, I am you. Everything that I am, you are. You are never less than me. You are completely me. And those things would come through, and I felt like I was being sacrilegious. I thought, how can I write that down? That's not, I mean, you know, that if anybody saw this, what would they think?
It must have been very difficult for you, excuse me, that you went through that, because at one time you were studying to be in the ministry as a young man. So you were going to be joining the religious order, and now all of this information is coming through, and it's about the opposite of that. It's claiming with what is within you, and it's ownership within you. It's not seeking outside of you. So it must have been a lot of turbulent inner going on within you.
Yes. At some point, you know, at some points you try to say, well, how can I blend this with this? Because I don't want to lose this, because it got me to here. But it came to a point where it's really I say the truth, the big truth. You just go to the absolute. And I like the word the constant. You go to the constant that is absolute, that doesn't change, that is your reality. And when I did that, I let go of all the teachings of the Bible. I dropped them all. I actually said one day in my room, I was crying, and I said, God, because I didn't know how else to say it. I said, God, nothing has worked for me. Nothing has brought me to who I feel like I really am inside, or where I should be, or anything like that. I felt like a failure in many ways. And I said, I'm not going back to that Bible. I'm not going back to anybody's teaching. Whatever is real and true, you tell me. I'm Adam. I'm the only one on this earth. I'm it. There's no Bible, there's no writings, you tell me. When I did that, my whole life began to change, because I set my intention that I would stand alone, I would be available, and whatever happened, happened. Because I knew, it's almost like Neo, when they pick him up in the car the first time, you know, in the movie The Matrix, and he wants to get out of the car, and she says, he wants to get out, and she says, you don't want to get out. He goes, why? He goes, you know where that road leads. Well, all these other roads, I knew where they led, but I wanted the reality. I wanted all that I am. I wanted absoluteness. And that's when everything I gained from that position, I was able to now show the truths and the reality of all those scriptures that I never would have been able to do before. They became alive. in a way that they were never taught to me.
I'm thinking that as you're speaking, that atheists and agnostic, there's a lot of people who are turning to this today. Being that religion is got its problems, or there's a lot of dissension and a lot of negativity happening, or a lot of information age that we're in the last 2 decades, and people are just turning away from religion.
Yes.
So henceforth, agnostic and atheism. Now, in saying that, where is your story in all of that? Because I hear that it's not atheist, it's not agnostic, it is basically ownership, yet in a very beautiful way of self-discovery and knowing. And I think that's what the agnostics would want. They're on the fence and saying, well, show me, I don't know. I want to believe, but I don't believe, so what do I believe, they're saying. And the atheists are saying, well, I believe that there is nothing. I am the creator, I am the be-all and is-all.
Yes.
But what you are saying in your book, Free to Fly, basically, is that it's ownership of self, and you can express that. You're neither this or you're neither that. And I love that you said the absolute. When you look at the absolute, then there's no more of saying that it's this or that. You're
Right.
just in the stillness with what is.
Yeah, and if you realize that you're clinging to a belief, just realize that. We don't have to do anything else. Take 5 minutes to realize that you're clinging to a belief, and that you're calling a belief your life. Now, either you'll find comfort in letting go of it, or you'll find tremendous struggle in saying, I can't let go of it, it's all I got. It's really quite dramatic. It's dramatic and it's powerful when you just realize you're living in a bubble of beliefs. That's what this world is, a bubble of beliefs. And it's a vibratory bubble of beliefs. But there's 2 things that sort of came to my mind when you were speaking. Everything's a truth. Everything's a truth. So when the atheist says there is no God, that's a truth. There is no God. There is nothing outside of you. There's nothing out there to worship. It's who you really are. And you can call that God. But it's not the old-time religion God. And it's not a linear thing of God the overseer, and then God me the follower. Then me the human, the follower. There's only me the unseen, undivided, infinite self, existent one, that has dove into this vibratory big belief bubble and forgot who I was. And now I get the most wonderful game where I'm playing peekaboo with myself and I get to discover who I really am. That's the difference. So everybody's right in some way.
But who is most right? Or is there such a thing?
There's not such a thing.
When you say there is no God for the atheists at that moment in time, that's going to turn off a lot of people that believe there is a divine.
Yes, and that's a belief.
Yes.
That's a belief.
So let's be very still with this right now, and
it's a tough one.
Yes.
It's a tough one.
Let's be still with it and really go underneath it.
I will.
And really share with what you are saying here.
I will. And it's important. I'm glad you asked for that. Because, like I said before, you can say the kingdom of heaven is within me, but if you don't know what the kingdom of heaven is, then it's just a saying. It's just a hope. It's just a belief.
It's a concept outside
It's a concept outside of you. Now, if you say God the Father, well, the life of the Son is always the exact same life of the Father. The exact same life. So that is only a metaphor saying that if I'm a child, son, or whatever, or daughter, or whatever of God, then I'm the exact same life. I am that life. Not just the same as like we sort of, I got a blue here and a blue over here and they look the same. No, it's the exact same one. So that's the difference between saying, understanding that if someone says there is no God, say, well, you got a truth. Somewhere you feel that something's true there, okay? Because you are consciousness. Now, if you say there is a God and you feel that power of this being that's supplying you and helping you and so forth, that's a wonderful thing too, because that metaphor of God, the Father, is only there to get your attention in here.
So in saying it's the two sides of the same coin, whether you're saying that there is no God or you know there is a God, one is working with that God energy, one is working not with it. Yet it is a concept, it is an idea, it is a thought. So if you're saying there is no God, it's still an energy, it's still a belief that you are allowing to happen. And so that is as valid as somebody saying that there is no God,
well, there
is a God.
They're using infinite power to hold on to that belief, no matter which way you go.
Yes.
And so my point is forget about where you're going. Just realize the power you have, that you're even taking a position. That's what's to look at. You wipe away the storyline, cut the storyline around, and realize the power that you're using to either hide yourself or discover yourself. Realize that power.
Beautiful.
And because the end place you want to get to is self-recognition, correct? I mean, I'm saying correct, but the end place you want to get to is absolutely embracing experience of self-recognition. So where do you start? Do you start in trying to manipulate things and use a belief? No, you start in recognition. Because that's the first and the last. That's the Alpha and the Omega. That's what always is. The road where you start is where you end. So if you start in descriptions and beliefs, you'll end in descriptions and beliefs. But if you start in embracing the recognition of the power and the essence of who you are in your experience, in your every moment, it not only shortcuts taking so much time to think you're going to get there, but you're already doing it.
On the same way, there is the people who are the New Agers, the spiritualists, and the people can get lost in that energy because now they're in a claiming to be of a concept, of an idea that they are rewriting or rethinking in a modern time now. And yet it's about not the father figure of the old times, it was right for that time, but in a present day age. So the New Agers versus the old time. So somewhere in that is the truth. And the truth that I hear you saying, Dempsey, is always leading back to the fullest potential of who we are, the ownership of that, and allowing the absolute. And everything just falls away quite effortlessly and beautifully.
Yes. Jesus said, my yoke is easy and my burden is light. And after he said that, we've had a zillion religions and a zillion philosophical systems that came up and said, well, you got to do this, you got to do that, you got to do that, you got to believe this, you got to believe that, believe this, believe this, believe this. And all of a sudden it became the biggest labor in the world.
So say this again, and what does this mean to you?
Well, it means that Jesus never meant, he never said you have to accomplish something, you have to believe something. He said of the religious leaders of his time, of the Sadducees and Pharisees, they had the Bible down good. I mean, they were, and they were doing great deeds. Even Jesus said, you do wonderful deeds. But he told his disciples, beware of the leaven of the Pharisees. In other words, beware, because all they give you is beliefs. All you end up with is beliefs. And when you think a belief is your source, a belief is going to be your comfort and value, and it will hold you there for a little while, but then pretty soon it just fades away because it's transit. It's not constant. It's a reflection, and you'll have to get to another belief.
It's a stepping stones to validate.
Yes.
Along your journey of life, and each and every moment you have the opportunity to authenticate, to validate it. Let's go back to the moment in time where all this started happening for you.
Sure.
10 years ago that you started having to go deeper within you. And at that moment when you said to God energy and you were crying in your room at that moment alone and you were saying, I can't do this. And then all of the information started pouring through you at that time when you let go of all those concepts. At that moment, what was happening to you in your life that moved you to get to that point in time? What were you going through in this physical world of life and being? What was a pivotal moment in time that moved you to get to that moment?
You know, it was a building of things, more of than a pivotal. But there was illnesses, there was divorce, there was. I spent a lot of time working I was a general contractor many years ago. Not many, but for many years I was. And I would go to Palm Springs to work. And I would go there, and I had what I would call some teachers there. And they taught Western Indian philosophy, Eastern Indian philosophy, some Christian stuff, psychic things. And like I said, when you find out things just don't work, either you just keep struggling in them and trying to make them work, or you have to let go of them. And
that was the moment where you decided to let go, and all the information.
And I didn't let go all at once.
No.
You know, I would let go of this much because, okay, I can let go of that. I had the strength, I had the courage to let go of that. Then maybe this. Okay, I'll let go of that. I'll let go of that. But you know, there's always this is something, if I could get across that's really powerfully, you know, important or pertinent, is that there's always one iconic belief that you hold back, that you're really calling your source, your comfort, your value. There's always one. And it's only an iconic belief, and it represents all the beliefs in the whole world. It represents belief, the entire belief system. It represents all of it. It's just an iconic one. It could be a relationship, it could be an addiction, it could be a job, it could be wanting money, it could be a lot of things. It could be family, it could be a lot of things that you're holding on to.
Ego of self.
That your persona has to be something, yes. And many things, but eventually you have to come down to that one.
And choose wisely at that time.
Well,
buyer beware.
Well, because and you don't make a mistake. It's still not. You still don't make a mistake. It's not like you can make a mistake. The point that you even got there is a hallelujah or something. You know, it's a yippee, you know, thing. So that's not even the point. The point of it is that it's still your journey to finally. For me, it was my journey to get there. And when you realize, when I realized, I'll make it more personal. When I realized that everything was absolutely purposeful, everything, it did either three things. It showed me who I was. It showed me where I was putting my value, power, and belief in. Or it supported me in getting me to the next step.
So your whole awareness and your perception, everything starts shifting, and the priorities start coming forth of what was most important for you to look at and to own and to know.
Yes, and more of it, I think that the real crux of it, and I've never probably really verbalized this to anybody, is that to be absolutely resolute in letting go of everything that anybody ever taught me, and listen to myself and hear myself within, without any belief, without anybody telling me right or wrong, with just where, and I could even make an experiment with that feeling, and then if I decide, nope, that's not where I want to go, I could turn and go the other way. And then if I didn't like that, I could turn and go the other way. And if I didn't like that, I could turn and go the other way. And it was all fine, but I was listening to myself. And when I say that, going the other way and the other way, I have this picture in my mind of a labyrinth. Because I'm just doing I'm just going how I want to go, where I want to go, and it's not where I'm going to, it's that I'm connecting with myself and following me.
So it was in the experience.
It's in the experience.
Being in that moment of experiential, and allowing it to speak to you without any other voices or any other shadows there of telling you what to think or what not to think and how to think it. You were just in the liveness of that.
And when I did hear those other voices, instead of trying to shut them out, instead of trying to reason with them or negotiate with them, what I did was I felt what I was feeling from them instead of trying to deal with information. I took the power I was feeling from them and I called it my power. And I never tried to change the story. I learned to not try to change the story. I learned to just embrace the power I was feeling as my comfort, my value, my life. And in doing so, not trying to change the story, because my pure essence, the only essence there is the awareness of attention. So when I don't give attention to the story, but I give attention to the attention I used to give the story, which is the only power, because my power, my attention, my essence is always calling to me. You feel something from a certain situation, it's not someone else, it's your power, it's your attention. It's saying, I'm over here, come and get me. That's all, forget the story about it. Let the story be whatever it is. Just embrace that power. And it's joyful. It's joyful because it's so free, because you owe nobody anything to achieve that. It all is within you.
Your second book, My Love is Alive, will be published next month.
Yes.
And it is definitely a work of much more of endeavor of processing what you were writing in the first book.
Yes.
And this is 300 pages plus.
Yes.
And you elaborate more on it by giving a lot of stories and reading in between the lines of what the actual Bible is saying.
Yes.
And ownership of that. Before we speak about that book, your second book, there was an incredible story in the very first book. You were in you were going to get some prescription filled at a pharmacy. You were going to get some fast food. There was a man who appeared to be homeless sitting there. Please share that experience of what happened at that moment in time. It's a very, very beautiful story. It was a moment in time for you that was very important for you.
Yeah, it was. It was one of the most powerful experiences I've ever had, and I've had a lot. I could barely walk. I had blood blisters busting from my legs. I had an allergic reaction to antibiotics. I was trying to get myself taken care of in Palm Springs by different doctors, but none of them would give me enough medicine that I needed because it was some very heavy medicine. I didn't find this out till later when I went back to my doctor. And I went to go get another prescription to try to take care of it some more and get another shot and all this stuff. And I decided I'll wait for the prescription, I'll walk over here to this fast food place, grab a burger or something. I got a salad that day. And I had just what I had in my pocket, and I saw this guy sitting out there in front with this pink, and I just can picture it like it's yesterday. He had this pink blanket sitting on the side, and he was just sitting on the corner of it, and this pink blanket, it was a sleeping bag, but it was unzipped. And he was sitting there, and he had this very dirty, leathery looking jacket, and his hair was just a mess, and his skin was like as if you went through a fire. It was all dark and light, and I could barely tell that he was Caucasian. And
so he had a worn, weather-beaten
very
face.
Worn and weather-beaten. And yes, and I looked over at him briefly, and I was just sort of barely moving my legs, getting past him. And this wonderful voice came out of him. And he said it like this. He said, in Palm Springs, it's not usually cold, but he said, but it had been. And he said, been kind of cold lately, huh? Just like that. I said, yeah, it's been cold. And I kept walking, went in, got my salad, and I came out. And without even a seeming thought in my mind, except just what I did, I reached in my pocket, grabbed the change I had, walked over, gave it to him, and started walking away. And I gave it to him, and he goes, thank you. Just like, thank you. And I said, you're welcome. And I started walking away, still not thinking about it at all, whatsoever. I got about 3 steps, and he said, and if I could have everybody really hear this, anyone really hear this deeply, because it's very important to realize this about yourself at all times. He said to me, I'm doing the best I can. Just like that, just this singing voice, I'm doing the best I can. And I didn't ask him to tell me anything, I was walking away. And I got a few more steps, and the whole world stopped. The inside of me just went whoop, and I could feel that I was him. Or he was me, however you want to call it. And I turned around this time fully and looked at him and saw him right in his eyes, and I said, because he said, I'm doing the best I can, I said, I know. And I barely looked at him. But this time when that happened, I turned around and I said, I know. Because I absolutely knew. What happened at that moment, I absolutely knew. And I wasn't trying to know. I wasn't trying to give him any attention. But everything stopped in the world at that moment.
What does this moment mean to you? That as I'm here, as you're speaking, it sounds to me that we are all connected. We are all doing the best we can do. But even beyond that, of his words, that we are all connected to each other, and we're all connected to the divine. And when we pay attention to each other, in that moment, there's a recognition of self as we connect to others.
You know, I go into that deeper in my second book especially. I go a little bit in the first one, and I explain what that really is, because I really feel it's important not just to say what the feeling is or what the experience is, but make it tangible so you can say, this is who I really am. Not just a guess or a hope, but this is who I really am.
Well, let's explore that.
And so in that situation,
when you were about to walk away and you didn't walk away and he said what he said, what stopped you in your tracks at that moment? What did you feel and know at that moment in time that you didn't know as you were when you first were going into the restaurant and you were just passing by and he was just an idle stranger at that moment?
It was timeless.
What was the difference?
The difference was all beliefs and all time and all space vanished.
Okay.
Nothing.
So all the concepts,
everything,
all the thoughts, all the feelings, all of the constructs of that moment in time of what you were doing.
My pain in my legs, why I was there, that I had food in my hand, all of it. Everything.
And it was quite simply from what he said, I'm doing the best I can do.
The
way he said it.
Well,
it struck a note in you that
because he said to me, and I really, because what he was really saying to me is no matter how I look, no matter what anybody thinks of me, no matter what belief there is, I'm just hunky-dory.
Yes.
I'm absolutely perfect and fine right where I'm at. And it was profound to realize that about yourself.
You elaborate on this more and a lot more in your second book that'll be published next month, My Love is Alive. What final thoughts do you have to share with others that would be of value to them, that would be perhaps would help them? If you were to leave one thing that you would want to share with others of the beloved or of your experience, what would that be?
It would be in the concept of ownership. It would be in the concept that stop looking at what you're giving power to. Stop looking at what the story looks like as power. That's the first thing. And to just embrace the power. Just embrace the power. It takes a lot of determination to separate that feeling of the power from the story. But if you do it for 20 seconds of outrageous courage, you'll see the difference. You'll see the difference. And one other thing I would say is that remember that you really are who you will always infinitely be. You are in this awareness of attention in this moment. You are it now. And that infinite consciousness is playing every role, not because it splits itself up, because it's infinitely dimensional. It's on the play set, playing all the parts fully as itself and fully as you. It can't be divided from itself. Thomas calls it the undivided. It can't be divided from itself. It's playing it fully through the perspective of your being. Always. You can never make a mistake. You're always fully consciousness. And to stand in that and let it show itself to be. Just let it show itself to be without judging yourself. That's what I'd say. Don't judge yourself. Let that truth, that reality, and that absolute constant show you itself to be who you are.
Well, Dempsey, thank you. I've been very blessed to be able to speak with you, and thank you.
Yes, thank you. Thank you.
And from the Art of Conscious Living, I thank you. Take care of yourself, take care of others,